Hello students, welcome to Oliveboard. Is it audible? I think there is some problem with the camera. Just let me see.
Hello.
Hi Preeti.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
There's some problem with camera. Students, so I feel that there is some problem with the video, but still I think the voice is audible and you can see the slides moving. Yeah, so students, no problem. You can see the slides moving and you can hear my voice, I think. Still, please, those who have joined the session, can you please confirm again in the chat box? Yeah, so students, no problem. You can see the slides moving. All right, so I'll continue the session. So again, welcome all of you students to Oliveboard, and we are here with a session on merging of current affair topics with the attempt to understand how to write a descriptive answer, right? This is our seventh session in a row. So it's been a month that we have started this series of classes, and the response has been good. Students, I think, are benefiting out of it, and we'll continue this. I don't think it needs any further introduction what we are trying to do, but still we are trying to pick up a couple of topics every week, and we are also trying to see what kind of questions can be formulated from them, and then make some questions so that we simultaneously are able to revise the content as well as see how questions can be expected and what kind of approach of answer writing should be adopted, what kind of tips and tricks you have to follow while writing an answer, and what are some templates that you can utilize while writing the answer, and also what kind of headings you can give, what kind of presentation structure you can adopt, so on and so forth, right? So let's get going. So the first topic that I've chosen for today's discussion is RBI Monetary Policy 2022. You know that there is a monetary policy in the country to regulate the flow of money in the economy, right? So what is monetary policy transmission? This can be one of the questions, right? What do you understand by uh, monetary policy transmission? So again, it's a direct question. You have to talk about monetary policy transmission. But this is what we call explicit demand of the question, the term that we have been consistently using throughout our various sessions, that this is explicit demand of the session, that this is asked upfront. But what about those things which have not been demanded in the question language, but you have to, you are expected to write it, right? Those are called implicit demands of the question. ठीक है? So implicit ये है कि you should first talk about monetary policy. What is monetary policy? ठीक है? And when did it originate? Under what statutory framework or laws monetary policy is made? Is there a committee, or who are the members of that committee? What are basic decisions that are made, and how does it have an impact on the overall economy? You could also talk about certain challenges associated with it. So all this should come in your answer, right? So first of all, you should talk about a monetary policy committee which is responsible for formulation of this monetary policy, right? So you know that there is a Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, and which has been amended multiple times, and this particular issue props up in amendment of 2016. So it was amended, RBI Act 1934, and sorry, and every year 4 times at least this committee has to meet to deliberate upon decisions that have to be taken, what kind of changes need to be made in the monetary policy framework, right? So it has to meet at least 4 times. Now, who are the members? You should mention in your answer how uh, these members meet and who are the members. Is there some permanent member, or what is the tenure of different members, on what basis they are chosen? This should briefly come in your answer, right? So you know that governor of RBI is by default or ex officio head of this body. Then you have deputy governor, you have some officer of the RBI, three of them are there, and then total membership strength can be fluctuate between 4 to 6. So these three people have to be there, and then you can have some academicians and experts of economy, of monetary policy understanding, who can enrich the discussion. So these people meet 4 times a year at least. They can meet more times. Why they can meet more times? Why this provision is there? This is because there can be some crisis in the economy, and to manage that and to respond to the emergent crisis, right? There has to be a body which can at least meet and deliberate, right? It cannot happen if they meet once in a year. So you cannot wait for that time to come, because crisis can be emergent also, right? So you know that what are monetary policy decisions. So you must have studied in the economy, basics of economy, that there is something called repo rate, there is reverse repo rate, and in banking chapter you must have studied about SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio. You must have talked about cash reserve ratio. Just know in the mind that if there is too much money that is flowing in the economy, then you can have a lot of inflation, right? You can have a lot of inflation, right? So at that time what happens? The government has to make sure that less money is going to the people, right? Yeah. So um, the RBI has to decide how much money should be there in the flow in the economy, because if there is more money chasing limited goods, inflation is bound to increase. And so to decrease the inflation, you have to reduce the supply of money in the economy. And how do you do it? You basically make loans costlier, right? And how do you make the loan costlier? If you increase the number of uh, percentage of interest that you have to pay on the loan, that will reduce the flow of money in the economy. And this is how RBI has the uh, tweaking capacity. It can alter the repo rate, reverse repo rate, so that banks' cost of credit changes. It can increase, it can decrease as per the requirement, right? So similarly, statutory liquidity ratio is there, and marginal standing facility is there. So these decisions taken together constitute the monetary policy decisions. So this is what is done by this monetary policy committee. ठीक है? Now it has a cascading effect. How does it have a cascading effect? So where from banks get the money? Of course, people deposit some small savings. It can also borrow from the RBI, because you know that RBI is bank of the banks. It is the supreme bank. So whenever bank needs money, it can go to RBI. But RBI charges some interest rate. Suppose RBI gives the loan at 3% of interest to normal commercial banks. So it is very logical that people will get loan at more than 3%, either 3.25%, 3.5%, because banks will also charge something. They will earn some profit. ऐसा नहीं होगा that they will take the loan at 3% of interest from RBI and it will give you at 2.5%. ठीक है? Now, suppose they are currently taking at 3% from RBI, and RBI increases the cost of credit. It will say now it will give credit to commercial banks at 3.25%. So this addition of 0.25% will have to be transmitted to people. बैंक अपने घर से तो देगा नहीं. अगर cost of credit बढ़ रहा है, so it will go to the customers ultimately. So suppose RBI was giving at 3% increase to 3.25%. So SBI now, let's say it was charging earlier 6%. So it will charge 6.25%, 6.5%. ठीक है? Then only the impact of RBI's decision will go in the economy. अगर बैंक महंगे रेट पर RBI से ले रहा है और लोगों को सस्ता ही दे रहा है, तो क्या होगा? RBI का जो सोच था कि हम कॉस्ट ऑफ क्रेडिट बढ़ा देंगे तो लोग कम लोन लेंगे, सर्कुलेशन में मनी घट जाएगा, ये तो हुआ नहीं. इसी को हम कहते हैं ट्रांसमिशन गैप. आरबीआई का जो सोच है, सपोज कभी क्रेडिट घटाना है मार्केट में, कभी क्रेडिट बढ़ाना है, लेट्स से आरबीआई डिसाइड्स दैट इन्फ्लेशन को हमें बढ़ाना है, स्लो डाउन आ गया इकोनॉमी में, और पैसा छोड़ना पड़ेगा इकोनॉमी में, सो व्हाट इट विल डू, इट विल रिड्यूस द रेपो रेट, it will reduce the charge on the cost of the credit. But suppose banks are taking loans at a cheaper rate from RBI, but still not reducing their rate for the customers. तो आरबीआई पैसे को ढीला छोड़ रहा है, लेकिन कमर्शियल बैंक्स नहीं छोड़ रहे हैं, दे आर स्टिल चार्जिंग द हायर इंटरेस्ट रेट. सो यहां पर फिर से एक ट्रांसमिशन में गैप आ जाएगा. सो दिस इज व्हाट यू हैव टू डिस्कस टुवर्ड्स द एंड ऑफ योर डिस्कशन, राइट? So all these things you have to discuss. So we can also briefly discuss the structure that you should follow. You should introduce that this is monetary policy. These are basic variables like reverse repo rate, SLR, CRR, CDR, MSF, whatever. Comma देके लिख दीजिए. Full form you can write, you cannot write. That's your choice. Then you can start talking about monetary policy committee, amendment, and when it was done, what is the broader mandate of these terms of reference, mandate of this committee, who are the members, how do they meet, how is decision taken, what if decision is stuck at times. So all these things you have to discuss, right? And then towards the end of the discussion, although it is not categorically asked that what is transmission related challenges, then you can discuss that sometimes bank don't change the interest rate in tune with the changes made by the RBI, right? So this is the challenge. Next question that we can discuss is related to remittances to India. Now you know that remittances, what is remittance? Remittance is something which flows from outside to a part of economy. It can be within the country, it can be global also. Let's say people from Bihar migrate to Haryana and then they send back what they earn in Haryana to Bihar. This is a form of state level remittance. ठीक है? Now people from Kerala go to Gulf countries. So they earn there in whatever capacity do they do as blue collar workers or as nurses, medical care professionals, software engineers, petrochemical industries, and then they send back the money to their country. Of course, Kerala को भेजते हैं, but it is inside India. So this is international flow of remittance. So the question can be, what is the significance of the global inflow of remittances to India, right? Now, data is very important in this question. Significance, if you have to discuss, you have to also discuss the scale of remittance. So why this question has propped up in the first place? Because you know that India is one of the largest remittance receiving country. We have a lot of people working abroad in different parts of the world, in different classes of economy, and they send a lot of money. So in 2022, India became the country which is receiving 100 billion US dollar every year from the international flow of remittances. So as compared to 2021, it saw a shift of increase of 12%. If you talk at South Asian level, then there was overall increase of only 3.5%. What does it mean? कि अगर ओवरऑल ग्रो 3.5% है और इंडिया 12% ग्रो कर रहा है, यानी देयर मस्ट बी सम अदर साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज for which the flow of remittances might have decreased, right? So why do we see such a increase in remittance, right? You see that there is increase, then there must be some explanatory reasons why the remittance is increasing. So you know that labor market is strengthening. I mean, demand of laborers from India is increasing. Why? Because we are a country with demographic dividend. We have a lot of people in the working age group from 15 to 65, and then we have a huge population. We have less developed economy, so people are available as surplus labor. Now they are surplus, they can migrate to other parts of the world. All right. So post-COVID recovery is also taking place slowly. So demand of laborers in the economic activity is on the rise. So this is one of the reason of increase in remittance. Then you have wage hike. Wages are also responsible. Sometimes they fluctuate. If the demand of laborers is increasing, cost of laborers will increase. If lesser jobs are available, more laborers are chasing, then the wage rate will decline. So we have seen a wage hike. ठीक है? Also, you know that if you do a financial transaction from other part of the world to India, you have to pay some cost for it. That also determines how much remittance will inflow. So there has been some kind of relaxation in how much of charge will be paid. So on an average, 4.1% of fee is there. Suppose you are sending 100 rupees, you have to give a charge of 4 rupees, around 4.1 rupees. So if that increases to 5, so net flow of remittance will decrease. So ये भी एक reason है. And in what parts of the globe economy is strengthening? In Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC area, Gulf areas, right? In OECD country, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, जो भी countries इसके member है, उसमें डिमांड बढ़ रहा है इंडियन लेबरर्स का, वहां चाह रहे हैं वो रेमिटेंस भेज रहे हैं. So this is the background that you have to discuss. Look at the language of the question. It is nowhere asking why it is increasing. It is basically asking significance of the global inflow of remittance. Now you have to come to significance part. Why it is so important? You know, we have discussed briefly that हमारे यहाँ विकास उतना ज़्यादा नहीं है, जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज उतने नहीं है, लोगों को एग्रीकल्चर से शिफ्ट तो हो रहे हैं, लेकिन उनके पास एब्जॉर्ब होने के लिए स्पेस नहीं है. वो कहाँ जाएंगे आखिर? तो वो माइग्रेट करते हैं इंटरनेशनली, डोमेस्टिकली, विद इन द स्टेट, विद इन द डिस्ट्रिक्ट, विद इन द कंट्रीज, विद इन द कॉन्टिनेंट्स. जिसका जो स्किल लेवल है उस हिसाब से वो माइग्रेट करते हैं. So if they send back remittances, it is going to reduce the poverty first of all. If you take the example of disaster affected areas of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So what is the disaster? Of course, floods is the largest disaster there. So agriculture पर direct impact है. So those people who are excluded or flushed out of agriculture will go to some other areas to work. If they send back the money to the family, so it will reduce the poverty. Incidence of poverty will reduce. Now, if the family or the household income increases, they will spend it. And where they will spend? They will spend into healthcare first of all. ठीक है? Students, I'll take a break of 30 seconds. Please bear with me. All right. So you have this uh, expenditure into different areas. So school enrollments will increase. People will start sending their children to schools to get better education and improve their human capital. They will also invest in better nutritional outcomes. They will invest into housing. So overall, what will happen? households will become more resilient to deal with the economic crisis, to deal with the poverty. जो भी poverty के साथ, you have studied about multi-dimensional poverty index. So whatever variables are there, this income is going to ultimately be spent on that, right? So all this is going to be the significance of global inflow of remittance. Next question that we will discuss now is what is the significance of Sindhuja 1? What is the significance of Sindhuja 1? Discuss now is what is the significance? All right. So if you look at the etymology of the word Sindhuja, it is made of two terms, right? Sindhu plus Ja. Sindhu, which means in Sanskrit the ocean, and Ja is basically what is born out of it. So Sindhu plus Ja together means something which comes out of the ocean. So this is the meaning of the term, original literal meaning, Sindhuja 1. So basically it is about ocean wave energy converter. You know that there are waves in the ocean, and whatever is moving must have kinetic and potential energy. So how do you produce electricity? Just look at the basics. How do you produce thermal electricity, or how do you produce hydroelectricity? You basically move a turbine, right? The basic concept is this: you move a turbine. So whatever can move the turbine, that can produce electricity, right? Now I'll not go into further detail of it. So what happens when you move the turbine? It is basically the change of magnetic flux which happens because of moving turbine, which is responsible for production of electricity, right? You can, if you are interested, you can go and study in the basics electromagnetism, and that will explain, right? So ocean wave energy converter is basically the idea to harness the potential and kinetic energy of the waves. So when those waves which move in irregular manner, if कुछ equipments ऐसे बनाए जाए so that its channel can be diverted and it can be moved in a linear fashion and it can be made to rotate the turbine, it will produce electricity, right? So this is what a research team at IIT Madras has done, and they are trying to use basic things like buoy, spar and electric module. Now you can Google and read further. So whenever waves move, this buoyant like balloon kind of thing moves, and it will uh, sometimes what happens, you can have a rotational motion, and it will, although it will move in a rotational motion or simple harmonic motion, it will convert into linear motion also. Some other associated body part of the machine can move in linear fashion. So that is what happens. We are not interested into that. However, here it is basically a question of science and technology, or environment you can say, or economy also you can say. So this is what they have done, and why it is so important, why it is the significance of this. You know that for decades there are negotiations going around environment. You know that there is a degradation. You know about greenhouse gases. You know about climate change. You know about dying down of our sources of fossil fuel, and what are the damages associated with burning fossil fuels. So there is a global consensus emerging with time that gradually fossil fuels are not unlimited. They are not non-renewable. So you have to move towards renewable source of energy. Those sources of energy which will not deplete with our usage very soon, because coals take millions of years to form and sunlight is in abundance. It will not get lost over our expected foreseeable future. So this is conventional source of energy, and then you have renewable source of energy which can renew itself very quickly. Wind energy, tidal energy, geothermal energy, solar energy. So these are some sources of energy जिसकी तरफ हमें gradually move करना है दोनों कारण से, because fossil fuels are limited and second they are dangerous. Its impact is visible in the terms of climate change. ठीक है. Now this is the idea. How does it institutionalize? We have negotiations in the form of UNEP, Kyoto Protocol, we have Nagoya Protocol, we have Montreal Protocol dealing with ozone layer depletion. Everything is somewhere related to the kind of fuel we are burning. So हमें constantly ऐसे experiments करने हैं that will show India's commitment to sustainable developmental goals. You go and see how many goals are there. कौन सा goal deals with sustainable development of renewable energy? Mention that in your answer and say that India is committed. Not only committed, it has quantified targets also. And what is the quantified target in this case? We have to create 500 gigawatt of electricity through renewable sources by what time? 2030. अभी 2022 चल रहा है. 8 साल के अंदर हमारा जो बास्केट ऑफ एनर्जी है उसका 500 गीगावाट रिन्यूएबल सोर्स से आना चाहिए. अब उस रिन्यूएबल में बहुत सारी चीजें हो सकती है. विंड एनर्जी हो सकता है, सोलर हो सकता है, टाइडल हो सकता है, जियोथर्मल हो सकता है, न्यूक्लियर हो सकता है, बहुत कुछ हो सकता है. So this is where we are moving. It is important to commit our sustainable goals. It is important to deal with climate change. ठीक है? Now, associated with this, you can also have a quick look at what is blue economy. Blue economy क्या है? So blue economy, blue term जहां भी आता है, you simply assume that it is something to do with ocean, right? Marine resources. Now you know that there are a lot of resources in the oceanic environment. So how to harness it? उससे रोजगार कैसे निकाले जाए? उससे डेवलपमेंट कैसे किया जाए? उससे एनर्जी कैसे प्रोड्यूस की जाए? उसको उसकी क्वालिटी को कैसे मेंटेन किया जाए? उसमें लोगों का लाइवलीहुड कैसे पैदा किया जाए? एवरीथिंग टेकन टुगेदर कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स द ब्लू इकोनॉमी. सो यू कैन ऑल्सो राइट दैट इंडिया का जो ब्लू इकोनॉमी का टारगेट है उसमें ये सिंधु जावन कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है. So overall taken together, this is how you can formulate your answer. So students, we had taken 3 questions today. Let me quickly recap. We talked about monetary policy transmission, then we talked about inflow of remittances, and then we talked about this ocean wave energy converter. I hope you liked this video, and we'll continue these sessions. Wednesday 8 p.m. is the original time. This Wednesday I could not take a class because of my engagement somewhere else, and today I'm compensating for that class. And I encourage all of you to share this video with fellow aspirants so that you can have a richer discussion in the live classes. Also, when the live class goes off, you still have the chat box. You can make comments, you can ask me questions, you can suggest some special suggestions that you need from my side. You can also ask for some special topics that you want to discuss in the class. So many things are possible. I encourage all of you to make it more interactive. And finally, I'm so sorry for glitches in today's video. I'll get it fixed with the technical team. And also I'm sorry for pausing the mic a couple of times. I'm not feeling so well. I hope you understand. Thank you so much.